All right, so this is part 5 in the Importance of Tradition series. And I wanted to keep this one also around the holidays because, I mean, all of the traditions that I've mentioned all have to do with this time of year. I started out with hunting, and then I went into us getting our Christmas tree, and then I went into the traditions that we had with my mother and how we still do them today, and how traditions can help to cope with loss over the holidays, um, which is again why traditions are so important. And I felt that it was a worthy topic to make a little mini series out of, because at least to me and my family, they are very important. um, and so the last one, well, then I also, sorry, did one. The fourth one in the series would have been the the new tradition that we're building around New Year's, and how important that one is to our family after experiencing the loss that our family did, um, here in recent years, and how these new traditions, like I said, can help cope, um, with tragic loss. And I do think that by carrying on, some of the traditions that you already had going on, is great and can help. But even creating new traditions, out of the out of these losses, it's just a great way, I think, to help progress through these emotions during a loss, in particular, the feelings that come with that over the holidays. And so I thought we'd just make this last one, the final one, also pertain to the holidays. And I was thinking about, we have a lot of different traditions. I didn't want to really get into them all, so I figured we'd cut it off here at 5. But when I was trying to think about what to do here as the final video, I was thinking about all the things that we do this time of year, and the one that kept coming back to me is around our cookie making. And I know that that was kind of discussed in the one about my mom, but I just mean more. This isn't just with her. It was the sugar cookies on Christmas Eve. What I'm talking about here is just all of the cookies, because we do quite a few, this time of year, because we would do the sugar cookie cutouts with my mom. Then with my wife's dad, he would also come up on Christmas Eve at a different time, from my mother, and they would do a traditional cookie that's an Italian cookie. They're an Italian family, and so they would make these. I don't remember what exactly they're called, but they're like round, flat discs that taste kind of like licorice, if I remember correctly. I've never really been too big on them myself, but that was also a tradition, um, that was built into the Christmas season here, and something that my children look forward to. Um, and we did magic cookie bars, which was my mom's recipe. We did chocolate, uh, or Hershey Kiss bonbons. Um, and then my favorite was the nut rolls. And I don't know if you're familiar with nut rolls or the process of making them, but that's the one that I really wanted to talk about here today, because it's a major process. Um, it's my favorite. It's my favorite cookie for the holidays. We only make them this time of year. And again, I have a family recipe that we use each year for them, and it's a pretty big process. It takes hours, um, but I think I personally think it's well worth it. It is very time consuming, and each year when I get into it, I question why when I'm about halfway through it, just because of how involved it is. But um, this is something that I have been doing for years, and um, it all came from when I was younger, tasting a cookie that, there'd be cookies all over the place at Christmas time. And I remember there was this one cookie that always stood out to me. And I was young, so I had no idea what exactly it was. And then when I tried to find, when I got older in my adulthood, and we were, I had my own children, and we were, you know, beginning to make our own traditions with making Christmas cookies. I was always trying to figure out what that one cookie was that I had when I was younger. And it took me a long time to figure it out, actually. I remember like not being able to figure it out, but then at some point I was explaining it to my mother, I think, and it was my aunt Donna that had them, and I was describing it to my mom, and she's the one that said, "I think you might be talking about the nut roll." And I said, "Well, I don't think it was a nut roll because it was like a regular cookie." And she says, "Well, you cut them." And then I got to thinking, and for sure I knew that there was like nuts in it. So when I looked it up, sure enough, that was the cookie. And my grandmother actually had a recipe for it in her recipe book that was handed down when she passed away. And so we started making those that year, and I've made them every year since. And I absolutely, like I said, I absolutely love them. My kids think they're great as well. They'd tear right through them if we let them, but I think that my recipe ends up making like 6 or 8 rolls, and then uh, I'll leave like 2 out after they're made for for over the Christmas season. But then I will wrap up and freeze the remaining ones, because if I don't, my kids will just destroy them and they'll be gone. So I always try and freeze some so that we can have them, periodically throughout the year. I can just go out and grab one and let it thaw out. But um, I decided to talk about this one because it goes back into my childhood, and this is what I mean about the importance of tradition. I mean, this tradition of mine now of making these nut rolls is merged with my aunt's uh, tradition of making nut roll over the holidays. And I was too young at the time to ever realize what it was that she was doing, but it was through her tradition of making them that I ultimately ended up making them. And then the recipe that I have from my grandmother, which was my aunt's sister, I believe was the recipe that she also used. So now my family, years later, is um, making the same nut rolls, the same recipe potentially as my aunt, which is the cookie that I remember loving when I was like, I don't even know, like 7 years old, maybe 7, 8 years old. So a long time ago. And I just think that that's pretty cool. And that's why I think this whole topic of the importance of tradition is worthy of discussion, because I know that we all have these type of things that we have within our families. And I'm sure that everybody holds certain ones near and dear to their heart, and they're very special to them and their family. And that's how I also feel about it. And I just think that by building these traditions, especially now with my children, my hope is that then this will carry on, someday when they grow up and they have a family, that they will continue this, and they will do it with their children. And that's what makes the the rich history of tradition, is by carrying on the tradition for generations, and adding your own your own flavor into the mix, if you will. So it's just, to me, it's fascinating. I think traditions are amazing, and especially when they live on for generations and generations and generations. And so for that reason, traditions are amazing to me. But anyway, with that said, I do want to, now that I'm into content creation here, I do want to this year record the process of making these nut rolls, just in case anybody else would be interested in doing them. Uh, so it's just going to add another aspect to the whole process of making these, which is demanding enough in itself. But I thought if I can get camera set up to record it, we'll do that. And I'll make a video about that then can be linked to this final video in the mini series about the importance of tradition. And then that way, like I said, if anybody decides that they'd ever like to give it a try, um, they'll have the recipe and the video, showing the process. And so I thought that would be pretty cool, and I thought that would be a good way to wrap this up, and like I said, using the nut rules as the final video in the mini series. So that's my plan. Not sure when I'll get that out. It won't be ready for this Christmas, but I will still try and post it at some point over the holiday season, and then you could save it or whatever you want to do, so that you can refer to it next year if that's something that you would like to do with your family. And I would highly recommend it. Like I said, it's, if you've never had nut roll, it's addicting. It's an addicting cookie. But that's it. That's the final video and the mini series on the importance of tradition. And like I've said so many times in each video, that I just have a fascination with tradition, and I think that they play a major role in family history, and I think that they're very special for a reason. And that's why I felt that we should go ahead and make a little series on it, which is what we did. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. um, I know my son asked me, um, we were talking about my channel, and I was like in my analytics, and he was sitting next to me on the couch while I was doing it, and he said he saw that the last video that posted was about the, I called it the thumbnail. I all of them have the importance of tradition. But on that particular thumbnail, it said pretzels, cheese, and Christmas trees. And he said to me, "Well, what does that video, like? How does that video help anybody?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know that it really does help anybody, bud. But that's not the point of this particular series of videos. It's more to just discuss the importance of tradition, and why I think that they're important, and why you know I think that other people, if they don't, they should start to create their own traditions, because of the role that it can play, in the family." And I said, not every video is made to help somebody do something, or you know so but it got me thinking. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these videos are just me sitting here. It's just raw table talk, and me telling a lot of personal stuff. But in my mind, this is my story. And so with this being my channel, I feel that that's what I should do on it, is tell my story, and all these things are part of it. And so, um, if you're wondering also why I would create videos like this, hopefully I've answered that question, because that's what this mainly is for me, is to talk about my experiences. Um, we've had a lot of hardships here in the recent years, and I just have to believe that there's always going to be people out there going through similar things. And so my experience in that arena, I believe, can be used to help other people. And when I started this channel, that was the main goal of, you know, creating the channel, was to ultimately help people. So not sure if we've done that in this series, but I think just being able to connect and to have these type of discussions and to talk openly about things like this and to let people in. I am a very private person, and so doing this was not easy for me. But once I made the decision to do it, um, there was no turning back, because I just, to me, with these life experiences that I've had, if I don't do anything with them, then it almost seems like the things that happened in vain, you know. Whereas if I do talk about them, and in one way or another they could potentially impact someone else in a positive way, well, then those things that happened didn't happen in vain. There's actually a purpose behind it, and that's uh, ultimately, I guess, my hope is that I eventually, this channel will pick up some steam and begin to get some more views, with some consistency here and persistence. And eventually, I do believe that the content will help someone, so that's what it's all about. So anyway, rambling a little bit. Don't want to have you on here too long. But anyway, that's the point of this series. That's the point of this channel. And hopefully you've enjoyed some of it thus far. So I'm Brad Casper. This is Casper's Corner, and we are out.